Are Chelsea good or not? I think this is a question that many people have been wondering for probably nigh on a year now. The supposed world champions of the world, whatever you think of the FIFA Club World Cup, they are the world champions. This is a team that won the Conference League last year. We saw a lot of developments under Enzo Maresca. But this season, I think people kind of thought that Chelsea would take that next step in their development, whether that be pushing slightly for the title, solidifying their position in the top four, or whatever you believe that those expectations would be for Chelsea. But this season, we've seen the highs of Chelsea and we've seen the absolute lows. So in this video, I really just want to ask, are Chelsea good or not? Now, Chelsea this season, as we've said, are a team that are completely all over the place. Looking at the results they've had this season, the positives to be exact, this is a team that have gone on to beat Spurs away from home. Whatever you think of Spurs, whether they're a good team or not, going away to your rival's ground and picking up a 1-0 pretty comfortable victory is not an easy thing to do. They beat my beloved Barcelona 3-0 in a game that really and truly they could have won 5 or 6. You can say Barcelona had a red card for half of the game, but even before the red card, they were completely dominating the entire affair. They drew 1-1 with Arsenal in a game that I was really impressed with Chelsea. I was not impressed with Arsenal whatsoever. I thought Chelsea handled the red card to Moises Caicedo very well, a player who has been integral for them throughout the season. And they played against Arsenal with 10 men for 45 minutes, nigh on an hour, and it didn't even look like they were playing with 10 men. And then another fixture in which I was very impressed with Chelsea this season was a 2-1 win against Liverpool. At the time, league leaders Liverpool, before they've gone on to do the absolute rubbish we've seen them to do these past few weeks. But in that game, we saw another level to Chelsea, that Esteval last minute goal, that it felt as though Enzo Maresca was starting to click things, really starting to figure things out with this Chelsea team. But then you get to the bad side of Chelsea, right? You get to the 3-1 loss at home against Brighton, in which they suffered a red card. The 2-1 loss at home to Sunderland, in which they suffered a red card. The 2-1 loss at home or away from home to an absolutely rubbish Manchester United team, in which they suffered a red card. A 2-2 draw away at Karabag. Yes, the team was rotated, but drawing away at Karabag in the Champions League is not a result that a team that's definitely vying for that competition should be having. A 2-1 defeat against an Atalanta side that's really struggling in Serie A this season. The departure of Gasperini has really shook that club to its core, and you can see it in the way they're playing in Serie A. And Charles de Ketelaere looked like prime Kaka against Chelsea in the Champions League in that 2-1 defeat. And then a 0-0 draw with a Bournemouth team that have won only one game in their last 11 in all competitions. A 3-1 loss to Leeds in a game that really and truly they looked outfought. They were outmuscled. They were just outbested by a Leeds team that are probably one of the favorites to go down this season. And then to put the cherry on top of that cake, amidst all of that, you had a 3-day period where Chelsea fans were telling you that they were going for the title. Genuinely, after their 1-1 win against Arsenal. Definitely, honestly, to be like, not to kid around, but it felt as though Chelsea fans were celebrating a 1-1 draw. It felt as though that draw against Arsenal was going to be the beginning of this next step for Chelsea this season. But to be very honest with you, those fixtures that I just read serve as grim reading, because we can see that in the big games against the best teams, possibly the best managers in world football, Maresca can go toe-to-toe with any of them. He can set up a tactical plan that analyzes the opposition's weaknesses like he did against Barcelona, and is able to match the intensity of the opposition and kind of take advantage of the weaknesses that they have. And as a result, you've been able to see Chelsea come out in games of those magnitudes, such as the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the Barcelonas, where they probably go into those games as the underdogs, quote unquote. But when you watch the games and you look at how they perform, it looks like they can go toe to toe with these teams. And for me, that's why I think Chelsea might actually be one of the underdogs for the Champions League this season. But then we've seen as well in those games that Chelsea cannot beat these teams that they're supposed to beat consistently. As I said, in that 1 week period where Chelsea fans had us believing that they were in a title race for about 4 days, they drew 1-1 with Arsenal in a game that should have given them a lot of confidence going into the rest of the season. And then they had 2 games right after that, Leeds and Bournemouth, and they looked equally as abject in both of those games, in 2 games that really and truly should have been an easy 6 points. So the real question is, why is this even happening? Why are Chelsea not able to build upon those victories that you have and beat teams that really and truly they should beat? I think this comes down to a whole host of reasons. I think probably the first reason you could look at is Enzo Maresca himself. Now, we can give Maresca all the praise we want to about how well he sets up against the big teams, how well he's able to go toe-to-toe with the top managers. But you also have to think about it in the sense that Enzo Maresca, this is his first real job at the elite level. Of course, he managed at Leicester, but before that, he had never managed anywhere before. This is his third full season in senior management. So the guy is still learning. And I think you can see that from game to game, particularly against Manchester United, where in my opinion, he completely threw that game away. So of course, Maresca is definitely, I think he's a manager that Chelsea can keep moving forward with, but he definitely has to learn how to, navigate these sort of games where Chelsea are probably the favorites and Chelsea probably have to be the protagonists. But I also think you can't put all the blame on him because you also have to look at some of these players. Now, of course, this is a Chelsea side that has incredible players in bits and pieces. I think I look at a player like Cole Palmer. Now, I know I made a video talking about how I don't think he deserved to be in the club in the World 11 FIFA Pro, but if we're being honest, it doesn't take away the fact that Cole Palmer is one of the best players in world football. Moises Caicedo likewise. We saw it in those 3 games that he was suspended. Chelsea looked completely and utterly lost in the midfield. And even the small semblance of control that you saw in that midfield was due to Reece James, who we've kind of recognized as a right back for most of his career. But Enzo Maresca has redefined him as a midfielder, and he looks top. He looks absolutely incredible in my opinion. And somebody like Romeo Lavia, who's been injured throughout his entire time at Chelsea, if he was fully fit, maybe we'd see him in the team, and perhaps Moises Caicedo doesn't need to bear that incredible load that you're seeing in the midfield. Someone like Enzo Fernandez, who's perhaps supposed to be helping him, I don't think he plays that role as well as you would want him to. I think he's a bit more efficient higher up the field in that number 10 role behind the striker, making runs in behind, rather than being deeper in the field and kind of controlling the tempo of the game. I don't believe that's his game. And then you look at other places on the field, I think Marc Cucurella has shown you that he's definitely one of the best left backs in world football. His consistency, if anything, has proven that for you. And a bright young player in Estevao, I think he could go on to be one of the best players in world football, perhaps even leaving Chelsea to go on to bigger and better things. No offense to Chelsea fans, but you look at the quality in that guy's feet, genuinely ridiculous. I watched him against Barcelona and he was one of the best players on the field. But amidst all that quality, there are definitely going to be players that you look at with Chelsea and you say, you cannot win anything with these guys. It's as simple as that. I'm sorry to be that blunt, but it's just the harsh truth. Players such as Alejandro Garnacho, players such as Pedro Neto, Jamie Gittins, Joao Pedro to an extent, Liam Delap to an extent, Trevor Chalobah, Wesley Fofana. I would even go as far as to say Robert Sanchez. These sort of players, I like to describe them as good squad players. They're the players that, if they were on your bench, if you had those players coming in and out of the team, sort of like the way you have a Ferran Torres coming off the bench for Barcelona. I love Ferran Torres coming off the bench for Barcelona. I despise Ferran Torres starting for Barcelona. They're two completely different things. And if those players were adopting those sort of roles in the squad where you're having an impact in the game rather than being the main person we're relying on, I think Chelsea would look completely different. And not only are they not good enough, they're not experienced enough. Joao Pedro, young player. Liam Delap, this is his first major season or second major season in the Premier League. Wesley Fofana had only played 2 major seasons in the Premier League before suffering a leg break that literally ruled him out for almost 2 years. Trevor Chalobah has experience in the Premier League, but I wouldn't say he's a Premier League title winning center back. I wouldn't say he's anywhere near that level. Nowhere near that level. You even look at other places of the field. Pedro Neto was incredible at Wolves, but ever since he's come to Chelsea, he has not really done anything to really justify that price tag that they paid for him. Alejandro Garnacho has never showed us anything to convince you that he's worth the money that Chelsea paid for him. I frankly don't know why they paid that much money for him in the first place. And then Jamie Gittins, 1 season at the Bundesliga. 1 season in which he started off on fire and then kind of tailed off as Dortmund tailed off as well. So it's a team that's really lacking experience. It's a team that's really lacking those veterans, those old heads that kind of know how to navigate. We talked about it in the Manchester City video. Those players who have been there, who have done it, who know how to lead a group of players. There's no players in the squad like that. And that touches into the whole recruitment policy at Chelsea that, to be honest, I am completely and utterly against. I have many Chelsea friends, and I've spoken to them about this before, and I continue to tell them, I will never support Chelsea as a neutral. Obviously, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but I will never support Chelsea winning games or winning football matches or winning titles, because the way they've gone about their business for me is just wrong. From top to bottom, it's completely wrong. I don't think that's how a club should navigate things. I don't think that's how a club should run themselves. I don't think selling a player like Noni Madueke and signing a player who's probably the same level or even worse than him in Alejandro Garnacho for obscene money, I don't see how that takes you closer to winning a league title. I don't see why you can't go out and spend big money on a Rafael Leao, go out and spend big money on a Rodrigo, go out and spend big money on an Osimhen, rather than banking once again on a Liam Delap, selling a Nicholas Jackson who had his weaknesses, but if we're being completely honest, is Joao Pedro a much better player than Nicholas Jackson? Is Liam Delap a much bigger upgrade than Nicholas Jackson? I don't see how that's a huge upgrade. And they consistently go out and they buy these young talented players. Quenda's coming in. Kendry Páez is coming in. We've been waiting for Estevao, now he's here. But all these young players, how are they going to lead you to a Premier League title? How are they going to lead you to massive trophies in football? And as I said before, the FIFA Club World Cup does not mean anything to me. It does not mean anything to me. So for me, the whole policy surrounding the way that players are bought and brought into the club, I don't subscribe to it. I don't think the constant turnover of players, I don't think that helps the players. I don't think that helps the management. I don't think that helps the coaching staff. I don't think it helps the overall feeling in the club. I don't think it allows you to build a culture of winning, because one year you have a group of players who know how to play with one another. You look at the partnership that Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson paired, that's completely gone now. And now Cole Palmer has to try and fit in with a player like João Pedro, who probably wants to play in that number 10 position as well. Liam Delap just has not really found his feet yet. And I'm not saying that these players are not talented players. That is not what I'm saying. Liam Delap has potential to be a great striker. I loved watching João Pedro at Brighton. Pedro Neto, as I said, was incredible at Wolves, and he could probably improve. I don't think Garnacho is that good of a player. I think what you're seeing from Garnacho now is probably what you're going to see for his whole career. But there's talent there. There's talent within the squad. But, I mean, this is not career mode. This is not FIFA. You're not playing a video game where players are just going to improve linearly and everyone's going to be at their peak at the same time. That's not how football works. You need those sort of players who are probably not at their peak anymore, but they live through that peak, and they can tell those players who are about to hit that peak about how to get to that point. They don't have that. They don't have any of that. And because of that, you're seeing the inconsistencies that you're going to get from young players. Go out and play against a Barcelona. Of course, everyone's going to be up for it. Garnacho's going to be up for it. I would be up for it. I am not a good football player, but if you throw me out on a field and I'm playing against Real Madrid, I'm putting every single ounce of my being into that game. And you see it in the performances that they put against Arsenal, intense, against Barcelona, incredible. But then when it's now time to play against the Leeds, when nobody's watching, just pick up the 3 points and go back to London. There's no motivation. There's inconsistency. There's a feeling of, we're better than them, we'll just win. Just turn up and win. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Now, I don't want this video to be as though I'm lambasting Chelsea or as though I'm just tearing into them and there's nothing good within the squad. There's a lot of good things, as I said. They have the building blocks. But I just feel as though when you have a team filled with as many young players as Chelsea do, there's going to be inconsistency. And then that's when you now have to touch upon the expectation of the club, whether that be the board or the fans or even the players and the management themselves. Is this the same Chelsea that we knew in the yesteryear who won Premier League titles, who went out to go out and win Champions Leagues? They just went out to win. It didn't matter how they did it. It didn't matter who they needed to sack. It didn't matter who they needed to sell, who they needed to buy. Just win. And I feel as though now you still have that remnants of that expectation, as though Chelsea are still that side that are going to be competing on all fronts every single year. Maybe we need to accept that that's no longer the case, particularly when you have a squad as young as Chelsea do. Because when you have a squad this young and this inexperienced, winning should not be the base expectation. Competing is the base expectation. And Chelsea are doing that. Chelsea are doing that and more, because they're showing in the big games. If we can click things, if we can develop a bit of consistency, and ultimately, the only way you will build consistency, the only way you will gain experience, the only way you will gain understanding of how to navigate those tricky fixtures, those tricky runs of play, is by playing games. So we saw it last year. Chelsea were top or second in the league around this same period, December, January period, and they kind of tailed off. They went on and won the Conference League. They went on and won the Club World Cup. This year, it seems like the same thing is going to happen. But the most important thing is, will Chelsea learn? I think the players will learn. I think Maresca will learn. We've seen illustrations that Maresca is learning. We've seen illustrations that the players are learning. But will the board learn? Will the board go out and buy players that actually help Chelsea? Will they actually go out and buy players that allow Chelsea to take that next step? Ultimately, I expect Chelsea to do very well in the Champions League. That's what I've always said to people around me. I think in the Champions League, when you're playing against teams in a two-legged affair, home and away, Maresca is able to cook up a masterclass. But in the Premier League, over 38 games, I will never subscribe to the idea that Chelsea will go for that. Never, ever, ever. Even the Carabao Cup, they just beat Cardiff a few days ago. I can see them winning that. I can see them winning the FA Cup. Because generally, on any given day, Maresca can beat any team in the world. But over 38 games, I just don't see it. So the answer, are Chelsea good or bad? I guess in an anticlimactic fashion, the answer lies somewhere in the middle. But what I will say is, I don't see them winning a Premier League. No way. But you don't have to win a Premier League to be a good team. Arsenal have been a great team for the last 4 years, and they haven't won the Premier League. So, who knows? But of course, as always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think Chelsea are good? Do you think they're bad? Or as I said, do you think the answer lies somewhere in the middle? Of course, let me know about that and a whole lot more. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.